Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Fossil Fiction. My name is Alyssa and today we have a great episode planned. If you couldn't tell, I really like dinosaurs. So everybody strap in, sit down, and get ready for a deep dive into Camp Cretaceous. The fictional Jurassic franchise was many people's first introduction to the amazing creatures who wandered the Earth millions of years ago. With 6 successful movies spanning both the Jurassic Park trilogy and the Jurassic World trilogy, there's only one thing missing: a TV show. So DreamWorks partnered with the streaming giant Netflix to produce a series called Camp Cretaceous. This name matches both its predecessors, as Jurassic and Cretaceous are names of time periods within the Mesozoic era. The only missing time period is the Triassic, but I wouldn't be surprised if there were storyboarders and executives trying to make the next prehistoric sequel. It'll probably be something like Jurassic Town or something like that, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. We have to talk about Camp Cretaceous first. Camp Cretaceous was running between 2020 and 2022 with 5 whole seasons shoved into these 2 years. The series took place during the Jurassic World trilogy, following a group of 6 campers stuck on Isla Nublar as the dinosaurs escaped their paddocks, just like they did in the first movie of Jurassic World. For information's sake, so that when I'm talking later you know what I'm talking about, these campers' names are Darius, Kenji, Brooklyn, Yasmina, Sammy, and Ben. These teenagers encounter several species of dinosaurs as they make their attempt to escape with their lives. It is very reminiscent of the Jurassic Park films. Many people will be shocked to hear that Jurassic Park, Jurassic World, and Camp Cretaceous are not 100% scientifically accurate. While they have not gotten every single detail wrong, there are many occasions where they are very misinformed. Just like most movies, some things are exaggerated, changed, and sometimes ignored in order to entertain an audience. That's the movie's purpose. There have been several steps toward accurate designs, such as the newest species of raptor seen in the Jurassic World Dominion movie, the Parasaurolophus, which is featured with feathers in its very final installment. First of all, there are many overarching and blatant problems with the show, including, but not limited to, the lack of adult supervision in literally the most dangerous place on Earth. Not to mention there are very confusing hybrids to add to the list of these abominations that the show uses that are just used for entertainment purposes. We have one that is absolutely adorable, and this horrifying monster. Also, not to mention the amazing plot armor that these characters have that allow children to escape a dinosaur nearly every episode for 5 whole seasons. But this isn't what this project is aiming to do. Instead, today we are going to focus on the scientific inaccuracies of the shows. In all reality, and as a disclaimer, I truly do love the Jurassic franchise despite its scientific flaws. I have watched both the movies and the television show more than once. They introduced me to dinosaurs and sprouted my love for them. Without them, I wouldn't be in this class today, and this analysis is all in good fun. Today, for our episode of Fossil Fiction, we will be looking at 3 dinosaurs completely misrepresented in the Camp Cretaceous show. Many people don't know this about me, but Parasaurolophus is actually my favorite dinosaur. Clearly, I've got a gray one, a red one, and a green one. So when I had the chance to speak on the Camp Cretaceous series, I knew I had to include my all-time favorites somewhere in this episode. So let's take a deep dive into the Parasaurolophus in Camp Cretaceous. Parasaurolophus is a herbivorous dinosaur that ironically actually did live in the Cretaceous, more specifically the late Cretaceous around the Cambrian period. Here is a hierarchy of the classification for this species. This dinosaur was present in the series several times as a sort of background character or filler dinosaur. I assume this is because its docile nature in the show. It focused a lot on the scary carnivorous dinosaurs. The color of these dinosaurs are widely debated, and occasionally we are able to prove them through studying fossilized melanosomes. However, it is fair to say that dinosaurs were not glowing. A new species created for the show is Parasaurolophus lex, a bioluminescent dinosaur very similar to animals such as anglerfish or firefly squid in today's day and age. These glowing appearances are simply for aesthetics. The word lux in this very fake species means light, which is evident in their design, as seen here. Obviously, herbivorous dinosaurs were not glowing at nighttime during their time on this planet as real-life animals. This would easily lead a predator to its location. Not only does this lux variety have its design flaws in the real world, but also behavior issues and adaptations that would lead to its demise way earlier than it did. Glow-in-the-dark skin would just be a beacon for any carnivore looking for a snack, so it doesn't make much sense. Something I am personally very passionate about is vocalization of dinosaurs. I think it is super interesting, and there's many times in Jurassic Park that you would think dinosaurs roar. You may recognize this sound from a Parasaurolophus in Camp Cretaceous. However, Parasaurolophus could not have made this sound due to a lack of a syrinx. According to the National Science Foundation, the syrinx was the oldest known vocal organ, which was first discovered in a species of bird called Vegavis ia. Some may wonder how this is disproving that Parasaurolophus had this ability to speak. However, this organ first appeared in the late Cretaceous, around 70.6 million years ago to 66 million years ago. Think around the Maastrichtian area. This is the same time that the last dinosaur species, right before the Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction event, happened. Birds are believed to be a direct descendant of dinosaurs, kind of like a living dinosaur today. Yet, somehow, no such organ has been preserved in any non-avian dinosaurs. This would mean that the syrinx was an evolutionary trait that developed almost after the dinosaurs' time on Earth. This further proves that dinosaurs did not have syrinxes. Now you're probably thinking, Alyssa, are you saying these dinosaurs were silent? No. The large crest on the back of a Parasaurolophus's head often does not fossilize correctly, due to soil and sediment often crushing it during the fossilization process. This is because this crest right here is actually hollow inside. And recently, in a study published in 2021, a Parasaurolophus skull was preserved with its crest fully intact. North Carolina State University claims that this crest was actually used for a Parasaurolophus to communicate. It lowered the sound by pushing air through its skull and up through its crest. The paper claims that the ears of Parasaurolophus could also hear the sounds that would hypothetically be made by this tube crest, meaning this is the closest we have ever gotten to recreating dinosaur vocalization and understanding how these dinosaurs used to speak. It is a very different story than what the show offers, and I found it a very compelling recreation of Parasaurolophus's actual vocalization. It was recreated by a YouTuber called Dangerville, and it is very important to know that this is a best guess, a hypothesis. It is not likely 100% accurate, and we might never know what Parasaurolophus actually sounded like. resemblance to the models used in the Camp Cretaceous show. However, this isn't even the worst case scenario of dino butchering for entertainment purposes throughout the Camp Cretaceous seasons. Stay tuned, because it's about to get a whole lot crazier. Another dinosaur absolutely maimed by the entertainment industry is the Dilophosaurus. Dilophosaurus means two-crested lizard, and this is apparent on the Camp Cretaceous design by looking at the top of their head here. Dilophosaurus was a carnivorous dinosaur that lived in the late Jurassic, in particular the Hategian and Pliensbachian periods. Here is the hierarchy of classification for this species. As discussed before, the Jurassic franchise enjoys pushing the idea of entertainment, even if it's destroying the scientific merit of their dinosaurs. Many people will recall this animal as the ones with the hypnotic frills, its ability to spit venom, and this rendition is present in the Camp Cretaceous series. However, all of that is completely unproven and highly unlikely to be true in the actual animal. A paleo artist named Mario Lanzas drew what is actually more likely to be the appearance of this extinct creature. Notice how there's a lack of frills on this rendition, and there's an alternative position of the hands. Instead of having them straight in front, they're more off to the side. We'll get back to that shortly. National Geographic actually calls Dilophosaurus the worst known dinosaur, in their words. In the show, the animal appears to be around the same height as a 12 to 13-year-old Darius. However, paleontologist Adam Marsh spent 7 years studying these animals and came to the conclusion that they were actually half the size of Tyrannosaurus rex. By looking at the complete hind leg fossils, it weighed around 3/4 of a ton, meaning it would have easily taken on large prey that lived along it in the same environments. For example, Parasaurolophus, which was another dinosaur that was around the size of an SUV, not a 12-year-old child. It is likely that this dinosaur was actually shrunk down in order to make way for the true star of the franchise, Rexy, the Tyrannosaurus rex. A medium-sized dinosaur who could spit venom would not detract from the main antagonist, but would still add to this show. Camp Cretaceous continued the trend of the small Dilophosaurus with the frills and the venom, despite many larger species appearing in the show. About the Dilophosaurus before we move on. Pay attention to this chase scene in season 4 of Camp Cretaceous featuring the Dilophosaurus. Studies completed and published on the Paleoelectronica by Kayleen Butler discuss how ichnological data, aka footprints, double aka trace fossils, show that while Dilophosaurus was mainly a bipedal animal, it was also known to place its forelimbs on the ground, something never once exhibited by the models on the television show. Even when the creature is stationary, its forelimbs never touch the ground. They remain tucked in front of it. Now, we're moving on to the most destroyed, ripped apart, and disgraceful rendition of a dinosaur, and yet somehow the most popular of the franchise. The raptors. One of the most popular dinosaurs featured in the Jurassic Park franchise appears in all 6 movies, all of the games, and of course, in Camp Cretaceous. The second trilogy, aka Jurassic World, features a trained pack of Blue, Charlie, Delta, and Echo, which has expanded this animal's fan base. But many of the original fans remember the classic kitchen scene. You all know it, I'm talking about the raptors. Naturally, when creating a show on the same timeline of Jurassic World, many of the raptors appeared, but more specifically, so did Blue. Despite its popularity, this is one of the most butchered portrayals of a dinosaur in the entire Jurassic franchise, not even just Camp Cretaceous. I mean, seriously, they hardly got anything right at all. The animal in the show isn't actually a raptor, but actually a Deinonychus anthropus, which is a much larger dinosaur that lived in the early Cretaceous period, around 145 to 100 million years ago. Real velociraptors were actually feathered animals. They weighed no more than 100 pounds and were smaller than the average Great Dane. The real velociraptor was obviously a carnivorous dinosaur that lived during the late Cretaceous period, specifically in the Maastrichtian period. First things first, as mentioned previously, dinosauria are ancestors of birds, not reptiles. But more specifically, birds evolved from theropods with 3 toes, such as the T-Rex and the Velociraptor. Camp Cretaceous followed the movie's franchise take on this creature by creating a reptilian-skinned animal. However, Velociraptor mongoliensis fossils were discovered with quill knobs, indicating it had a plumage of feathers. Take a close look at it, you can see them. And according to the Natural History Museum, these were long feathers, not small, attaching from around the second finger all the way up its arms. However, just because it had feathers, let's not say it could fly or glide. It could not. These feathers were likely just for display or to keep it warm, maybe even to attract a mate. You can see that these feathers are fossilized on the stone here. Take a look, you can see them. Also, it is important to note that velociraptors like Blue may not have even been that color. Her name suggests that she is blue, but Blue is actually seen in Camp Cretaceous with a slate gray color, but she does have a very vibrant blue stripe running from her head to her tail. A study by Yale students in 2012 used a scanning electron microscope and found that a feathered dinosaur called the Anchiorus had feathers with intact melanosomes, which they compared to modern birds. They found that this animal was mostly black, white, and gray, with a very small amount of red on its head. We can't speak for all feathered dinosaurs, but it is very likely that other feathered dinosaurs would be similar with very neutral colors on its body and maybe having bright colored feathers on small sections. Here you can see a recreated drawing of this dinosaur. Velociraptors got their ferociousness from many entertainment adaptations that the directors gave them. I bet a lot of you would argue that these raptors, they're highly intelligent and dangerous pack hunters that could outsmart the humans. However, according to scientific research, none of those are correct. First of all, let's get this straight. Raptors were probably not pack hunters. Sorry, Blue. National Geographic cited a study called A Reevaluation of Cooperative Pack Hunting and Gregariousness in Deinonychus and Other Non-Avian Theropod Dinosaurs, and it was written by Roach and Brinkman. It discussed how Deinonychus had a dietary diversity as they aged, and they did this by studying the chemical analysis of their teeth. I wouldn't think to look there. This meant that younger non-avian theropods did not share the same meal as the older avian theropods. This would be highly unlikely if they hunted in packs. If these animals were pack animals, the older and stronger would probably go and hunt and bring it back for the younger. The fact that the younger non-avian theropods had different diets depending on their age, means that they were likely solitary hunters and hunted for different foods depending on their age. Speaking of which, this means that Velociraptor probably wouldn't hunt humans if we were in the same time period. According to paleontologist David Hone, Velociraptor diets were comprised of small prey and scavenged remains. Some of the larger prey that was fossilized was probably already dead when the raptors ingested it. Otherwise, they normally attacked small reptiles, amphibians, insects, dinosaurs, and mammals. In the later seasons of Camp Cretaceous, there's a pack of raptors often chasing these kids as one of the main threats in the jungles. But this probably wouldn't happen because raptor wouldn't hunt us. To add to this animal's realism, it was not insanely smart as the movies portray. However, this isn't to say velociraptors were dumb by any means. The Natural History Museum and researcher David Button described that they can estimate an animal's intelligence based on the size of their brain and their body. It is called the encephalization quotient. And the velociraptor's brain size in comparison to its body was actually relatively high compared to most reptiles and dinosaurs. This means that yes, it was comparatively clever to other prehistoric animals, but in hindsight, it's not as intelligent as the movies and TV show portrayed it. It wasn't even as smart as a parrot or a crow in modern times.
To collect the last one. Got it. The final stage. Success. 8 individual stages complete.
Finally, as we touched on during the Parasaurolophus, dinosaurs likely did not have voice boxes. And in the very first episode of Camp Cretaceous, our main character, Darius, wins the trip to Isla Nublar by using a raptor's resonating chamber to beat his video game. Later, while in season 1, he attempts to look for this chamber in order to ward off a pack of incoming raptors from him and Kenji. He figures by blowing into it, he'd be able to communicate with them. This was disproved, though, by Dr. Clark and Dr. Lamanna, both paleontologists at the Carnegie Museum of Natural History. The structure of the resonating chamber did not exist, and even if it did exist, it would only be used to amplify the sound. It would not have the capacity to recreate velociraptor calls like a giant duck call. Raptors, actually, were likely to use closed-mouth vocalization instead. Now you may be wondering, what is closed-mouth vocalization? I'm glad you asked. Closed-mouth vocalizations are sounds that are emitted through the skin and the neck area while the mouth is kept closed. This is done by pushing air that drives sound production into an esophageal pouch rather than exhaling through the mouth like we do to talk. The coos of doves are an example of this behavior in modern day. However, these sounds would probably be more quiet and lower in pitch. It is a lot less scary, though, to watch Jurassic Park or Camp Cretaceous to think that the raptors, instead of sounding like this, would have instead sounded like this. Now you see why these adaptations are made for entertainment purposes. We all can understand wanting to make a good movie. It would be a lot less scary if our dinosaurs sounded like doves. The misconceptions of the Velociraptor, due to the Jurassic franchise and, of course, Camp Cretaceous, are some of the biggest problems when it comes to the show's realism. Animals like Blue, Charlie, Delta, and Echo are unfortunately as real as a dragon or a unicorn. They are completely fictional and not a real representation of the actual animal that would have wandered the earth millions of years ago. there you have it, the truth about 3 very popular animals from Camp Cretaceous. While the changes made for entertainment purposes make sense, it is important to note that most of these qualities were not actually found in dinosaurs. This series may not be accurate, but it is a fantastic introduction to dinosaurs and will likely introduce an interest in the next generation of paleontologists. Being able to distinguish what is real from fake is important, but it's also acceptable to enjoy the fictitious story of an island filled with bloodthirsty, prehistoric animals that look like they would come from your imagination. Camp Cretaceous is not safe from the entertainment facade, but that isn't necessarily a bad thing. It is what reignited my love for dinosaurs in 2020 and led me to actually taking this class. As long as researchers are disproving claims and showing the truth, there's nothing wrong with a show like Camp Cretaceous. In fact, I hope more people do watch it. Just be sure to question the reality of things and seek the truth out for yourself where possible. Well, everybody, that's all from me. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you want to check out more of my content, maybe I'll make some more. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Bye!